Hello and welcome to Full Tech Ahead. This is Amanda Razani, and I'm excited to be here today with Steve Orrin. He is the federal CTO for Intel. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Amanda. Thanks for having me today.
Happy to have you on the show. Can you share a little bit about your background and what do you do for Intel?
Sure. So I've been working in technology since the early 90s. Most of my early career was in the security startup domain, driving multiple innovative technology approaches to helping organizations solve the critical security challenges that they were facing both at that time and in the future. And then around the mid 2000s, through an acquisition, I joined Intel and started to broaden the horizons beyond just, sort of cybersecurity for various specific domains to looking at it more holistically. Because, with a company like Intel that is inside quite literally everything from laptops and desktops to servers, now cloud and wireless and networks and edge devices, looking at a more holistic view of security. And so for about 10 years, I drove the cybersecurity technology innovation across those domains. And then in the most recent past 10, 11 years, I joined the federal division and have been really focusing in on how do we help the federal government across civilian, military, and intelligence and the broader public sector adopt the right technologies, modify or customize technologies to meet their mission needs, both from a security perspective as well as just from an operational performance and workload perspectives, whether that's cloud adoption. Right now a lot are focused on AI and sensors, networks and wireless, and really helping to bridge those technologies together to bring the right commercial capabilities, modified or customized to meet the federal mission. The other aspect of my role is I'm driving our security R&D with the federal government. So that's the advanced research into next generation security capabilities, understanding the next generation threat or technology domain that we need to figure out how to secure or how to leverage to do security better, and helping to drive those innovations through the government industry partnerships.
So you're working on this at the highest level. Very important stuff here.
Indeed, indeed.
Yes. So our topic today is AI and what impact does that have in cybersecurity, which we know is a lot. But from your standpoint, where are the biggest concerns?
So it's a really good question. And really to look at it, there's a lot of angles when it comes to AI. And I want to sort of start with two sides of the coin, which is how, and really that coin is a three-dimensional coin. So there's actually a third side as well. Just don't have a good analogy for it. But you start with how do we protect ourselves from adversaries that are already starting to use AI to build better attacks, better campaigns, and understanding that the adversaries are using AI. We've seen this for the past year or two around advanced phishing campaigns that are leveraging AI to create much more believable phishing emails, to even jumping the chasm into more targeted multimedia. So thinking video, audio, and bridging those worlds together, deep fakes, to really try to trick users into believing they're talking to a real person or someone that they know. To most recently, and this happened just about a week ago, we saw the first AI-enabled ransomware that actually had code inside the malware that was performing real-time AI on the environment to help evade detection and evade the tools you would use to prevent the ransomware from doing its job. So we're seeing AI being adopted. And from a cybersecurity defender perspective, is how do we defend against these AI-enabled attacks? And so that's one area. So how do we protect ourselves from the AI-enabled adversary? The other side is, with AIs, we're deploying the government, the commercial industry, everyone is deploying AI quite literally everywhere. How do we secure that AI? How do we make sure that it continues to operate the way we expect to, that it's not being targeted or attacked, or the infrastructure and resources that it relies on aren't being compromised? And so how do we protect that AI? How do we validate that the AI hasn't been poisoned, hasn't been coerced, or that it's still operating the way we want? And so there's that focus on applying security to the AI workloads, to the AI infrastructure and the AI lifecycle. And the last one, which is an interesting area, which is great. We're deploying AI. We got defend against AI. How do I use AI to get ahead? How can AI help my cybersecurity to do better, or to be able to deal with these both emerging as well as the sheer volume of threats? And so when you think about AI and cybersecurity, it's really across all three of those domains that CISOs CIOs and the operators and mission people have to consider is, my adversary is using AI, I'm deploying AI, I have to protect it. And how best can we leverage AI so that we can do a better job or at least reduce the risk that we're all dealing with?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially as AI is evolving and adapting so quickly. So, how do they really? Do you have any advice as far as that particular issue and also using the AI as a solution? Do you have some tips for business leaders?
I do. And I think we'll start with how do you just keep abreast of both the AI and how you secure it. One is you have to take a step back. It's got a lot of people look at, well, I need to protect the AI once it's deployed. And by the time you're thinking about security at the end of the life cycle, you're almost too late. And a lot of times this is the same sort of philosophy or strategy that we've applied to many other technology innovations. We go back to the web. Well, we have to protect the website once it goes up. Well, what about building security in from the get-go? And that's really the same approach that a best practice for AI is understanding how do I secure the AI throughout its life cycle or build in these controls and governance from the data, sourcing all the way through the life cycle. And that way, when you get the outcome at the other end of the funnel, and you have this really cool AI, you've built in security along the way. It becomes much easier to then practically scale and deploy that AI. So one really powerful approach is looking across the whole AI lifecycle, understanding what your data sources are, and making sure that you can provide integrity to know what the data that came in is actually really helpful. Then validating that you're getting good results on the other side if you can match those two worlds. Protecting the infrastructure that you're relying on as you're building the model, tuning the model, optimizing, doing some of that early training to make sure that at any point in that process, there's no coercion, no poisoning, or even unintentional bad data getting in through the door that could skew the ultimate results. And then when you look to deploy it, it's not just looking at the AI, the model, the inferencing, the weighting, but what is the platform you're deploying it on? How is it going to be able to secure that workload as it's deployed into the wild and exposed to the Wild West, that is, all the people prompting it or all the sensor inputs that are coming in? How do I maintain the security of that infrastructure? And so when it comes down to starting with a good plan and getting and understanding that life cycle, the other best practice that's really powerful, especially as AI continues to advance and it really touches multiple parts of the organization, is having the right team of people involved from the get-go. So everyone thinks AI, okay, that's the business units, they're building the little model, and then IT will have to deal with it later. But really bringing those teams together and bringing in some people you don't normally think about, compliance and legal, the business people who are trying to figure out how to monetize this thing. If it's in a commercial, or if it's the mission operator who's ultimately going to rely on that data, bringing them into the fold from the beginning so that you have the diversity of voices and opinions as well as contribution to that process builds a better product on the end. And this is our common knowledge with other development projects. It's especially important for securing AI because what happens is that if you're going to start pulling in data sources, and some of them may be regulated, having the compliance people know that in advance gives you the tools early to protect your resulting app from being problematic and stopped later on. It's just bringing that right strategic team together and having them help inform and drive that overall conversation leads to better outcomes every single time.
Absolutely. I always say that communication is key and that teamwork and collaborative effort is so critical. So that helps when implementing the AI technology. But what about, let's talk about another issue we have in companies, the shadow use. Employees using this AI without company knowledge and potentially sharing things that are risky.
Yeah, that is a really good question. I know there was when ChatGPT first came out, there was this mad dash across corporate America to block it because there was worry, and it was legit.
You frozen. Is it Scott? Are you still good?
Industries, regulated industries, getting out, getting that information out. So that is a valid concern. Part of that is policy and training. So you can't put your head in the sand.
Steve, hold on just a
Yep.
second. You froze for a large
Oh,
portion of what you were saying, and
oh,
I couldn't hear you.
okay.
I was trying to tell you,
Where do you want me to go back to?
ooh, Can you start do you mind just starting back at the answer to my question about the shadow IT? Just kind
Sure.
of start back. Okay.
Okay. So shadow IT and shadow use of AI is actually a big concern. And you go back to when ChatGPT first came out, there was this mad rush across corporate America to block it because there was a lot of concern about corporate secrets, trade secrets, regulated data getting exposed, getting put into the prompts or into the questions that would expose, the Coca-Cola secrets or the manufacturing details or the regulated, PII data. And so there was valid concerns. um, Part of it is going to be, sort of classic training and policy. So making sure that employees are well trained on how to interact with these new technologies. But it's important to note you can't stick your head in the sand because, like any useful tool, it can be used for good or for evil. And so the first step is train and create right policies. Don't block outright because then you're just going to find people finding ways around the policy. Beyond that is looking at ways that you can leverage it. And there are ways to actually bring those kind of technologies in-house. So to protect your data from the exposure, whether that's creating your own sort of microcosm model, so bringing in the model, training it on local data without it exposing, or limiting the access of who can ask the right questions. There's a host of security tools out there that are looking to provide that sort of proxy layer so that you can make sure to detect. I know that financial institutions were some of the first to adopt that because of the rules and regulations around traders. I mean, think about it. Every trader wants to use ChatGPT to pick out what's the next thing to go put a trade on, but that could be insider information. And so having the right controls, just like they do on their emails and on their text messages, putting those same kind of proxy controls in place are important. So there's tools that you can deploy to help proxy, and there's training and policy. But I think the flip side is, and where we've seen some really good success, is when you figure out, okay, how do I leverage the ChatGPT, the Llama, or these other Microsoft Copilot? And there are ways of doing this compliantly, both with internal infrastructure, with specialized services that you can pay for to get the same kind of benefit without it being the Wild West. And so I think that the real approach is over time is becoming more comfortable with how the tool can be leveraged and when you should be leveraging the tool. And that, and I've seen some really interesting ones. There was one of my partner colleagues typically will use ChatGPT to create a blog post just to get the ball rolling, and then takes the blog post and brings it to the internal experts and say, okay, go make this right. Because that's the other thing you have to remember. These chat GPTs and other chatbots out there and these large language models, they look like they're 100% correct all the time, but they're not. And it's one thing if you're just looking up an essay to try to figure out, what did Shakespeare write this and can you help me do a book report? You can be 90% right and that's okay. It's another thing when you're making decisions based on it, or you're going to put out a marketing material. So one of the really good uses is use it for the open source side of it. So for the what's not considered to be trade secret or corporate IP, to give you the framework, and then let your internal people take the output of that content and actually do the work. And that really goes to one of the things we were talking about earlier. How do you leverage AI to get more efficient? Is use it for the 80% of what I call the 80% of the stupid stuff. Automate the stuff that's easy, that is time consuming, that doesn't require the super expertise. And then let your experts focus on that 20% hard part, whether that's making sure that all the decisions the AI gave you were correct, or tuning it to the specifics of what you're trying to do. And that marriage, if you will, the computer, the AI human interface is really about using it in the right way. It's not supposed to answer all your questions, but it can get you far enough along that then you can do the tweaks to get it to what you want it to be.
Absolutely. So now let's rewind to the first cyber issue you were talking about, which was all the deep fakes and the use of AI to trick people. And they're getting really good. I am
They
seeing
are.
some really good scams out there that almost tricked me. And then I realized, oh, I see the one little area there that's a problem. So, what advice do you have in that regard?
So there's no one size fits all answers. I wish there was a silver bullet, but there are some best practices. And it goes back to some of the basics of phishing campaigns in general, is think about the medium that you're getting the information from. If you're getting an email that's telling you something that looks legit, verify that that email is legit. Whether that's looking at the URL of, or the email address, making sure it's actually correct. not just the emails, because those can be spoofed. Look at the link before you click on it. Validate out of band. So if it's something that could be risky, like, hey, I need you to transfer the $25,000 to this partner account, it can't hurt to just say, okay, great, I'm going to go into my Teams chat and go check with that person. Or I'm going to go jump on call them up on the phone and say, hey, did you send me an email to do that? So little things that you can do to sort of verify, it's the idea of trust but verify and verify again, is to make sure for things that you think could be risky. If you have any inkling of doubt, it can't hurt to just do that second check. Um, at the same time, it's harder and harder. One thing, and there was one of the security experts out there, his name is Gotti Evron, did a really good thing when that first deep fake video that got that bank in Hong Kong to do that big transfer. One of the things that he noticed, or he said, is that deepfakes are good at replicating your face. So, like, think about my face right here. It's really good at replicating my face. And I've done a bunch of podcasts, so people have that data. It's not very good at gesticulation. And so, one thing you can do is if you're talking to a deepfake video, say, hey, can you wave at me and give me a thumbs up? And you would find that very few of those AIs have been trained on simple things like that. Again, it's not going to solve every, because eventually they'll train on that too, but it's just a little catch that you can say, hey, be interactive with the person in a way that isn't just my face. That way, because if you ask you a question about your family, guess what? It's probably trained on my family from a Facebook account. So it knows that. But something as simple as giving me a thumbs up could be hard for the AI to do in real time. And so the little things like that can be helpful. But overall, it's just we have to be skeptical of the information that's coming at us through the mediums that it's coming through. And it's the same thing with phishing and scams. But again, it's a cat and mouse. They're going to get better. Our defenses have to get better. There are tools and research, and there's some fascinating research into deep fake detection. And they're looking at everything from biomarkers. So one of the really early research that Intel and others were involved in is that if I'm looking at you right now, AI in a lot of these deepfakes have a hard time with gaze detection. So you're looking at me, I can see both your eyes pointing at me. If I take an amalgamation of every video you've done and everywhere you've looked, you may start to see jitter in the way the eyes are looking, or the eyes are looking in weird directions. Also, the blood flow in my veins in my face. Now, you and I are, with our perception, can't really see that, but our cameras are really good. And they're actually able to see the heat residual of my blood flow. And therefore, a detection tool looking at that same video could actually pick up the blood flow. And my blood flow should be, if it's normal, a normal heart rate. An amalgamation of videos would actually get a very non-normal looking heart rate. And so those are some of the biomarker techniques that are being used today to detect a deep fake video. And it's been used a lot in some of the media campaigns where someone posts a video of someone saying something, they can go look at that video and do an analysis and say that that's a fake because of these markers. Mm-hmm. We're also seeing, and this is some very recent research into looking at the ways that these deepfake generators generate their deepfake videos, and their subtle signatures in the processing that it does to generate the video that themselves can be detected. And so not only can you detect that it was generated, but actually I've seen research where you can actually pinpoint it was this version of this generator that did it. And so we're seeing that that research go into how do I detect a fake. But again, it's one of those things that will be an ongoing battle between the defenders and the adversaries as each one tries to get better than the other. Adversarial AI is going to be one of the ways that we sort of keep ahead by challenging their current systems and seeing if they can get better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of upsetting that we have to be so vigilant these days, but I'm glad there are solutions, and thank you for sharing the tips because it is something we have to think about now. So I
Absolutely.
want to talk real quick about the future of quantum computing because I know as fast as we're seeing technology advance, it's right around the corner. And so what risks are going to be introduced once we have quantum computers full scale?
So it's a really good question, and a lot of people are struggling. Well, what is the risk? There's the foundational one that everyone's worried about, and that is what they call the post-quantum cryptography problem. When a quantum computer, a legitimate quantum computer of sufficient size, so what they call a practical quantum computer, not these little cool demos, and there's cool demos of quantum computers. We've built chips, but it's really about when we get a practical quantum computer using Shor's algorithm, we'll be able to crack the much of the cryptography that we've been relying on for the past 30 odd years. The asymmetric or the key exchange technologies and several others. And that is a scary problem. The bigger challenge is, okay, when is that going to happen? And what do I do? When do I need to worry about it? And this is one of those nuances that are often lost on folks until they sort of think about it a little bit. And I'm going to give you the trick here. It's not about I need to be ready when that quantum computer happens, because by that time it's too late. Because the reality is I'm encrypting data today. All the adversary has to do is just copy that encrypted data, put it into a storage and wait. So it's that harvesting problem that we're having today that we're worried about. If I want my secret, if I want my credit card transactions, or if I'm a government, I want my classified communications to stay classified 30, 40 years into the future. Whether that quantum computer happens tomorrow or in 35 years, if I need it to be secure 40, I need to start encrypting with better cryptography today, because the adversary is just copying the data, holding on to it, and waiting for that quantum computer. Once they have it, then they can go back however many years they've been collecting the data and start decrypting that information. So that's why we've seen in the U.S. government with the mandates that have come out. We've got the National Security Systems Board, the NSM-10, NSM-23, 21, and the NIST publications, the CNSA 2.0. All of these go towards how do we, as a whole of government, move to post-quantum cryptography, to the different algorithms that would be safe in a quantum era. And they're starting the clocks relatively soon. So starting in 27, all new procurements for national security systems will require to be PQC ready. We're already seeing the accreditation program starting to update the NIAP and the commercial for classified validation programs to add the post-quantum requirement. And then you look at the time frame, they start with, well, you have to acquire the systems and the software. And then starting by 2030, we have to put those into operation. So it's a pretty quick turnaround from buying it and getting it operational to by 2035, everything that was legacy is gone. And we're only doing post-quantum going forward. That time frame seems like a long time, but by government speeds or by large industry speeds, that's not that's very fast. And so we're all moving towards that. And we're seeing commercial industry already looking for these things because they recognize that they are also at the same kind of threat. So the banking and healthcare and other industries that have confidential data they want to protect, trade secrets they want to protect for long periods of time, are already starting to think about, okay, what do I need to do around post-quantum? And so I think that's the threat. When it happens, it's hard to know. Is it going to be 5 years, 10 years? Each scientist has their own prediction. You can basically pick the number in the middle, and that's probably the closest. But the clock has already started ticking on how do I protect the data that I'm generating today against that future threat. Once that system goes online, there's a whole bunch of other things we have to consider. It's going to be a powerful tool for good, allowing us to do amazing simulations and amazing things with logistics and supply chain management, modeling new proteins to new materials, all those good things. But once we have a practical quantum computer that others can get, like universities and hacker groups can get access to, we're going to see next generation malware. We're going to see next generation adversarial campaigns, just like we're seeing with AI today. So they will take advantage of it. So it's, today we worry about the post-quantum crypto. In the future, we're going to think about, well, how do I protect myself from a adversarial campaign that's doing the data analysis or the polymorphic malware development using quantum computers? We're years away from that. But when we get there, that's going to be the conversation we have on the podcast in 10, 20 years.
Well, as with anything, it can be used for good and bad reasons.
Yep.
So, again, just being prepared, like you said. Are there any key takeaways that you can leave our audience today with?
Sure, I'll give them a couple. I'm going to touch on both. So I'll start with where we ended, which is quantum. What do you do? So the step one in that is inventory your systems. You can't secure or protect what you don't know. And so step one is understand, where do you have cryptography within your organization today? What cryptographic algorithms and key sizes are you relying on for all aspects of your security, whether that's your simple stuff like VPNs and networks, email encryption, full disk encryption, to things that are encrypting inside your products. You may have a word processor, you have a PDF processor. They're doing crypto in there as well. You're secure booting your systems. There's crypto there. Everywhere, there's crypto everywhere. So step one is inventory your systems so you know what you have to upgrade. And then start creating a priority list so you know where to start. Because at some point you're going to want to say, okay, the CIO's got the budget, let's start. You need to know where. What are the most critical systems? And then as soon as possible, start moving to the post-quantum crypto capable versions of those. And those are starting to come out. We're seeing software. There's already, Signal and web protocols and other services are already adding post-quantum security to their systems. Start taking advantage of that and planning the rollout so that organizations, whether they're public sector or private sector, are already on the path and have a plan. So on the quantum side is do that inventory and start planning for your upgrade. On the AI side of the camp, I think the three things I would suggest, one is look at your AI from a full life cycle approach. Get the right team together so that you can inform the right decisions around securing it throughout its life cycle. And then lastly is, make sure that you've got the right infrastructure in place to help you address the security of both of the ones you know and the ones you don't. Because like with any organization, you're going to have, you want to call it rogue AI, or it could be, hey, this innovation project, we have to get it out the door quickly. We're going to bypass the CIO just for today. We'll come back to them later. You need to have the right infrastructure so that when you find that thing, you don't just shut it down. You have a place to land it. And that's where the CIO organizations can build out security governance for their AI and be ready for these quick turn, because AI can be developed very quickly. I mean, we're not talking about the 4-year process of building a large language model of the scale of a llama. These local LLMs can be developed fairly quickly. So having a means to allow them to do that quick development and then secure it as part of that process will help ease that path forward. So being a partner, like I like to say, be a partner in the crime as opposed to being the recipient of the crime.
Thank you so much for all your advice and your insights today.
No, thank you. It was a pleasure.
And thank you to our audience. Stay tuned. There's more podcasts like this coming up.